Well, welcome back everyone to the Unmastered class. On today's episode, we are decluttering our way to inner peace. Lance, this is perfect timing. I need this.
Yeah, because I don't know about you. I always suspected that my inner peace was stuck behind the ambitious stack of self-help books behind me, but what do I know?
Well, Lance, we're about to find out because today we're joined by trauma-informed feng shui expert Stacy Scott.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Stacy, welcome. We're doing great. Thanks so much for being
No,
here.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation, Stacy, because I was reading a little bit of background on you, and with over a decade of experience infusing this modern neuropsychology and ancient feng shui practices, Stacy's dedicated herself, to helping people heal through their home, and welcome, because again, it's really exciting for us to have someone that has your experience, your background, and something that we've kind of all heard about but don't really fully understand. So I'm super looking forward.
Yeah, definitely.
And tell us a little bit about how you got started connecting with trauma and clutter.
Yeah. So in typical fashion, trying to do this in my own life, I grew up in a pretty cluttered, kind of a dusty, growing up in the 80s and 90s where collecting and, pack ratting was just the way to be. I'm definitely one of those millennials that grew up in one of those super crowded households. And then when I ended up going to college, I basically decided to become this ultra minimalist. Minimalism was in, girl bossing was in. And so, I went in the opposite end of the spectrum, going from, this really cluttered kind of life to, I couldn't even breathe. I felt like I couldn't breathe in my dorm room if even like a little pillow was out of place. Not really connecting this to having grown up in a kind of more abusive, energetically chaotic and cluttered household. I kind of went through my life just thinking, I was the cream of the crop because I could declutter and I could have like this super minimalist life, and people really praised me for that because in our society, that's really how you're supposed to behave, right? We all hear that minimalism is the way to go. And it wasn't until I got really burnt out from being an occupational therapist and having worked in people's homes for over a decade that I really started to look at, I just wanted more. I realized not only in my own life I was missing something, but also when I walked into my clients' homes, I was missing tools in my toolbox. I was going in with my stair glides and my grab bars. I was working with older adults at the time. And I'm like, wow, this is great, but this isn't helping her. Like, this is not helping them. And I actually, did the huge taboo in our society. I quit my job without a plan. And I'd say within 2 weeks, I very clearly heard in my mind, you need to look at feng shui. And after that, I was off to the races. And it just became very clear between my own experience in life and then being in the home as an occupational therapist for over a decade with folks. I was like, wow, this is the missing link between what I saw and in clients' homes in my own life, and like this is now the practices and the teachings and the philosophy, and that's how I ended up marrying them. Believing that I was only going to help maybe a couple of people in the world, and then my social media shot off, and I have people across the age spectrum, across the socioeconomic spectrum, across the political spectrum coming to me for help. So it really took me by surprise.
I love it when a story starts with I'm going to jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down. Like that's such a great way to start the book. And so, with Unmastered Classic, our community is all about trying to learn and figure out things that we were just never taught, that we're all just kind of supposed to just know somehow magically. So
right.
Can you share with us? So one of the things I know we're all curious about is when exactly does our stuff become clutter, and how do we know how much is too much?
So I actually love this question because I answer it in not a way that people expect. Because in my world, when we talk about clutter, the word clutter itself, just even on a subconscious level, if you just like Google the word clutter, the definition of it, it means an untidy heap or trash. So even the word clutter can make us feel like we are somehow failing in our homes, especially when we have all this outside pressure coming from, the Marie Kondos of the world and the home edits of the world, and nothing against them, but they're kind of coming in and telling us that we have too much stuff. So when I talk to people from a trauma-informed lens, I actually tell them, I don't care how many possessions you have in your home. You get to decide when your stuff goes from treasured possessions to possessions you no longer want to have a relationship with. I don't even use the word clutter because it's so inherently shamey, especially for folks that have they come from a trauma background or they have a history of trauma like myself, and they find decluttering challenging. So I always tell them you are in a relationship to your possessions, so you get to decide when that relationship feels like it's come to a natural close. And I know some of your listeners might be like, but chick, you're not like telling me. Like, I want to know. Tell me the definite.
Right. Right.
Well, I got hung up on the fact that you just said that my relationships were what?
You are in a
now?
relationship to your possessions, and you get to decide.
Yes.
I'm in a relationship to my possessions.
That's so different.
Which means that, once again, proving I have incredibly unhealthy relationships in my life, because I'm looking at that. And one of the things that you mentioned, Stacy, I saw on one of your Instagrams, was that you don't believe in this messy home, messy mind idea. And, I work with a lot of people that are in the neurodivergent world and stuff like that. And there's this idea that I don't subscribe to that either, because for many people, what's happening on the outside of them is actually what's happening on the inside, but it's not the exact same thing. Can you just touch on like sort of why messy home, messy mind quickly doesn't really relate?
I think you really touched on it yourself too. I think a lot of these slogans that have gotten popularized in the world of decluttering and minimalism are actually more shaming folks than they're helping them. We have this classic 33% of Americans have a garage they can't fit their car into. And every time you buy something, you need to throw something else out. And we have these kind of, quote unquote rules of thumb that really just make you feel bad about yourself. So I don't want anybody walking around in their most important space, their sanctuary, the space where you're supposed to be able to breathe and be yourself, believing that because they have some paper strewn across a table, that their mind is somehow not right or somehow messed up or somehow out of the ordinary. Because it's that line of thought that keeps us stuck, shamed, and resistant to change.
Amen to that.
This is very freeing, because I've carried around some guilt around getting rid of some older like keepsakes, even though to your point, I have no relationship with them. I feel like I should have one, and maybe it's the guilt I'm carrying, but that's a very great polarizing way of like, do I still have a relationship with this? If yes, keep it. If no, set it free.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. And in addition, this is, we need to talk about this because we know Lance has a disdain for the color blue. You also have discussions around color theory and why we dislike colors. And this is all connected. So can you give us a little snapshot into that world too?
Yeah. So
people will be interested in that.
I do color theory just from a feng shui standpoint. So feng shui is this really classical ancient Chinese system of really aligning yourself and your home with the energies of the world. So for just a little background, in feng shui, there's actually 5 energies or elements, we call them. And blue is aligned, blue, purple, and green are connected to the wood element. But I find specifically with colors, to jump back to colors, but I promise what I just said will make sense. When we talk about color, I really find we don't hate color. So Lance, don't hate me here. We don't hate color. We are subconsciously uncomfortable with the abundance that color can bring in. And what makes us uncomfortable with it is we either had an experience with it as a child or a young adult where somebody said, oh, I hate your red shoes, or like, oh, you're wearing orange today, where somebody was maybe a little judgy or shamey, or you are subconsciously kind of uncomfortable with its just energetic vibration of the color itself. So blue is linked in feng shui to wood energy, which is all about new beginnings. It's very fast paced. It's getting new ideas off the ground, but it's also linked to family. So this is kind of where some of our family skeletons can live. And of course, Lance, I don't know you at all, so I don't know how this is landing, but that's kind of what the color blue is.
I think it's really important too that you said that we don't hate colors, and I agree. That's the only thing that we hate are presidential candidates. Other than that, we really shouldn't hate colors. But I think that what you just touched on was kind of key for me, because it was the first time I put 2 things together. One is when you talk about it being a wood element, I don't like ugly wood. And it seems like a weird thing. And Jake, you're going to be like, we just made a hard right into some place, Lance, where no one wants to understand the landscape of how bizarre your mind is. But my wife and I, when we were shopping for a house, we would go into places. And that like 80s wood where all of the molding, everything was the same beige wood everywhere. I was like, nope, absolutely not. She's like, you can paint it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I already hate the house. right? And so I couldn't get past those things. So to your point, I think there's probably a lot there to this idea that, like, yes, my family of origin is rife with issues and conflict and problems, and I don't like ugly molding. So it sounds funny, but like in truth, like I kind of get it. Like the energy that comes from a lot of that stuff and things like that, they are things that, as you're talking about, align with like why I just don't really feel comfortable in some of those areas. So
I mean, our
super
home is
interesting.
telling our narrative. And often for a lot of us, it's telling our subconscious narrative. It's who we believe we are. It's the energies, the vibrations, the colors, the furniture that we're comfortable with. But for a lot of us, especially, for my clients, because I work with folks with a history of trauma, that's maybe a story that they don't want to keep telling themselves over and over and over again. They want to break free of that narrative. So when I go in and I help them shift things by, Lance, what you just put together, like that's what I help people do. Like I give them these mind explosions constantly, and they're then able to shift things around, whether it's color, artwork, furniture, or even just relating to their space differently. That's when they start to really create this new subconscious narrative. And then we move into the, wow, your home is able to help you. We get into the more classic feng shui of home is able to help you manifest XYZ, success, money, relationships, what have you.
I'm super excited because now when we go table shopping, Jake, I'm going to have the opportunity when my wife says, like, I love that table, I can look at the price tag and go, I'm sorry, the color of that wood is bringing up childhood trauma. We can't actually
She
own
will
that.
love that.
Don't send her my way.
Awesome. Oh man. So I again, I want to expand on this because again, trauma is a huge part. And I think that trauma is one of those words that I think gets misused. This is just my own personal opinion. I think it gets misused a lot because I think it's sort of been co-opted into, and I'm going to use a term that's going to probably upset some people, but a little bit of a woke concept in this idea that everyone likes to talk about my trauma, without really respecting what trauma actually is. And I think it's important to understand that when you talk to someone, and I'm excited to hear your answer on this, that is a trauma-informed person and helps people through those process, it's for me trying to understand where that starts. So when you talk to people in that first step, when you're working with clients about healing trauma through feng shui, like where does that start? Because I think there's a big difference between, I didn't get the job and I'm now suffering from trauma versus, no, I have real stuff in there that I was either through abuse or psychological abuse, physical, whatever that may be. So I'm just curious in the beginning step, what's the thing that you're looking to talk to people about in the very beginning when you start doing your
So
work?
I think I'm going to answer that question just a little bit differently than how you posed it, because I think you bring up a good point about trauma. And in my world, trauma is a spectrum, and I have seen, I've worked in my OT career at Johns Hopkins. I worked at the Veterans Administration. Like I've seen our vets come back with stuff. So I can appreciate where you're saying how, this term trauma has been a little co-opted. So I really like to look at it like a spectrum. Not everybody's going to live at the one end of the spectrum of severe PTSD or severe childhood neglect, abuse, physical, sexual, emotional. But I do think it's valuable for people to connect to their past in a way that they feel like their emotions are valid. So for me in my world, I really look at this. You can just take the word trauma out of it too. And I like to always say did you have an experience that gave you some sort of heightened emotional response, good or bad, that you still feel weighs on you? Yes? Okay. We can dive into that, whether or not we want to label it trauma, because I'm not into labels. So that to me, if you can say, yes, I have some sort of experience from my past that makes me feel kind of bad or icky, I don't care what it was, then yes, you have stored emotional energy in your body. And yes, we're going to shift that.
That's a wonderful, Jake, I don't know about you, but I just, it's like an amazing way to reframe something into something that doesn't deal with the label, because I think even the label itself carries trauma. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but
It's
I think
gotten to that point. Yeah. Absolutely.
No question. Are there?
go
ahead, Lance.
Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
I was going to just expand on that and kind of jump to our next thing here. Is I know it's very clear to us that the work is very one-on-one, very intimate, and yet, for the sake of our audience, I have to ask the question: Are there one or two changes that are kind of almost universally applicable, where if someone wanted to kind of restructure how their home is set up or the stuff, the items around them, is there anything that you could kind of blanketly prescribe to us to do as one or two simple steps to get started?
Yeah. So I get asked this all the time. And what I actually like to tell people to do, instead of jumping to doing, because we are in a society, right? We want the magic bullet. Who doesn't want here today, gone tomorrow vibes, right? The foundation that I like to instill in my audience, not just my clients, but my entire audience, is this foundation of I can figure this out. I don't need to spend thousands of dollars on me or whatever. I can do this by, honing. I call it a space IQ, but you can also call it intuition. So I always tell
Yeah.
people, I want you to leave your home. Go leave your home for a couple of hours, come back. And when you come back, I want you to open the door so slowly to the point where you are starting to get pissed off at how slow it's going. Because we move so fast. We wake up, we got our coffee, we're brushing our teeth, our dog is barking, our kids are crying. We shoot out of bed and we don't see our homes for what they are. How often have we left a pile of laundry in the corner and we're like, how long has that laundry been sitting there? Oh, 5 days? Great. Where did those 5 days
Yep.
go? So I want you to come back into your home so obnoxiously slowly. I want you to notice the colors, the smells. What colors are there? What colors are missing? What's the first thing your eyes land on? Is it artwork? Is it a tabletop? Is it a plant? Where are your eyes going? How is your body moving through each of the rooms? Because how you move is how energy is going to move. Are you bumping into things? Or do you have to kind of contort your body in this weird way to get around the couch? So that's the kind of stuff that once you see it, you can't unsee it. You're like, and you might go
Yeah.
through your home like, wow, I have absolutely no blue or green in my home. Or I have absolutely no red. I am completely missing pink. Or like, wow, I have nothing but white and gray. So I want you just to notice, not that that's necessarily a bad thing, just notice it. And that's what
Mm.
helps you really start shifting the narrative in your space before you have to move a damn thing.
Gotta slow down.
So I'm gonna completely go off of mental script if it's okay with you, Jake, because
Sure.
this and I'm sorry, I rarely do I encounter things where I'm now fascinated and completely sucked into this where I have to ask a
Welcome to
personal
my
question.
world. I get this all the time.
Yeah, no, this is good. This is good. We'll talk after, by the way. I think you have a new client right now, but so here's my question. So for many of our listeners know I live in a household with 3 people I adore and love very, very much, and who happen to be ADHD. And I tend to become the grounding factor of the decluttering element of things because, in ADHD world, a lot of it, none of it's intentional. It's all driven by there's just, again, what's happening on the inside starts happening on the outside. And so what I have become is so hyper vigilant of when someone puts something down to do something with it immediately, because otherwise it will be there forever. And so what I'm curious is, we talk about that's probably my own trauma and some experiences coming out through how I behave and act in and around these things. And in a lot of instances, they create unhealthy parts of my relationships with people because it's really simple. Last night, literally this just happened last night. I hate when other people get the mail. And you're like, why? Who cares? And Jake, you're like, really? Like every time I think I cannot find you weirder, like I somehow find you weirder. I hate when other people get the mail. Why? Because they will come in, they will pick it apart like vultures on a carcass. They will open half of it. They will just leave it there. And then everyone walks away. And I'm like, what the hell? First of all, what is going on? Why can you're literally standing next to the garbage can, right? So in this process for me, I just immediately throw things out. I'm in this mode of throwing things out or grab a box and throw everything in a box. So besides the deep mental health therapy that I probably need, what does it say to our listeners out there in terms of whether or not you keep things or get rid of things? And then sort of like what I just described as that behavioral model of, people that are sort of very neat and need to feel control in an area because it seeks comfort for them versus others who are like, I'm just okay with stuff being everywhere.
So what you just touched on, Lance, is nervous system. And again, the nervous system is a spectrum. So what you just described is the other people in your household. Not that their nervous system is good or bad. It's just their nervous system can take we'll call it chaos of stuff, more stuff lying around versus yours. You feel it more, right? You might feel it like, oh my God, this is driving me nuts. I have to do something about this. And that can potentially cause, headbutting in relationships. So what I would say to somebody, if they're, if your listener's sitting there going like, oh my gosh, that's me. I find that this is actually something very common with women after they have children because children create a lot of chaos. What I would direct people to do is to stop for a moment and think about how you were raised. Did you grow up in a household where also all the corners needed to be perfect and no dish could be in the sink longer than 5 minutes? Or did you grow up with the opposite? So I find we either continue doing what our parents did, that could be a good thing or a bad thing, we get to decide, or we go the complete opposite direction because whatever we grew up with did not feel good to us. So that's where I would direct somebody to start. Just how did you grow up? Just think about that. And is that something you want to continue doing? Because then if that answer is no, for let's say you were my client and that answer is no, we would start to do nervous system retraining. I use inner child healing, which is a modality born out of internal family systems. It's a somatics, under that umbrella of somatics. And we would start to look at, okay, well, what's hanging out in the nervous system that piece of mail is nudging at you so badly that it's causing friction in your relationships or even internal chaos in your body. So
Yeah.
That is so,
went deep
so
on you.
true because no, really, it is. I mean, I'm convinced I was dropped repeatedly as a child, but I think that again, that is a really valid point too, that for me at the core is how, again, as you say, how we were raised informs the sense of security.
Absolutely.
And that behavior said you're secure and you're safe when things are clean. When there is chaos or things are out of order, there's no control and things are out. And I grew up in a household with, a parent who unfortunately had mental health issues and there was a lack of control in and around that. But I'm just super curious, Jake, was your household like neat, not neat? What was that?
I was trying to think back. That's why I was looking off camera here a little bit. I actually don't, I feel like it was right down the middle. Father was an architect. I feel like his space was really neat. My mother was a teacher. So we kind of had like my dad would always get upset. He's like, stop using your teacher voice. So I feel like she probably brought the classroom organization stuff home. But I don't feel like it was an extreme. I didn't feel like an extreme. Now I relate very much to your mail thing though. Now that my kids figured out how to open the mail, it's the same thing. But I want to take us to kind of the connection now to wealth and career success, jumping a little bit further on. So Stacy, on your website, you do a lot, talk a lot about how the principles that influence our success in life and career. Can you help us understand some of the principles here that influence our success in personal and professional lives?
Yeah, so it's actually what I was touching on before about home is sharing our narrative. So if we are in a space that actually is keeping us connected to old stories, griefs, traumas, pains of the past, it really makes it hard for us to feel like we can move forward in life, right? Get the job that we know we're worthy of. Go have the awkward conversation with the boss where we ask for more money. So because we're in, energetic relationship to our homes, not just our possessions, but our homes as a whole, you feel like when your home is really not in alignment with who you're really trying to become and trying to transform into, that's when we start to hear people say, well, I'm stuck. I feel like I can't move forward in life. I feel like what's happening here? And they start to kind of crumble a little bit. So when we talk about success and money, they're really, in my world, two sides of the same coin between the trauma and the success. And whether or not you don't always have to have a history of trauma, but you might just have that home that's still giving you this narrative of who you used to be rather than who you're becoming and transforming into. So, in your home, we would look at using different colors, different artwork to really support you in creating this new subconscious narrative, because what you see around your home every day is creating that subconscious belief of who you believe yourself to be. It's your self-concept. So then we start to shift that and we make room in your life and in your body for new things to flow in.
That makes a lot of sense. I think after hearing kind of our conversation thus far, I feel like not that there's a lot of misinformation out there, but I think there's a lot of just misunderstanding or misconceptions about the work you do. Can you? I'm sure now over the years you run into a bunch of these that probably come top of mind. Can you speak to us a little bit about some of the misconceptions as it relates to this? And because I think there's just like this perception of, well, if I move my bed into the center of the room, all my problems go away, right? So can you just dispel some of that for us and share what we might be misconceiving about this work?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. especially when it comes to wealth. I bet everybody's heard, or to some degree, that you've got a wealth corner, and if you put a plant in there or a crystal or something, right, you'll get
Yes.
a check in the mail for $1 million.
Yes.
Feng Shui is one of these really powerful practices that absolutely I have seen wild things happen when I like painted a wall or, I shifted something in my home. On the flip side of that, where I think it runs off the rails for people, because it did for me initially, is if you have all this other either mental chatter, energetic chatter that's not really in alignment with what you're trying to call in. Sorry for the woo-woo chatter, but when it's just not really in alignment with what you're trying to do, the feng shui won't work. It won't
Yeah.
come in as effortlessly as it can. So this is when, like, I tell people, I'm like, sure, you could go put all the plants you want in that wealth corner. Rock on, do it anyway. Plants are fabulous. We love them. But don't expect $1 million, because what's going to happen, your home is always going to give you what you need, not necessarily what you want. So yes, shifting your bed is going to make an energetic change in your life. It might just not be what you expect it to be, but you will always get what you need, which usually then means that's the next layer of healing, the next layer of, moving forward in your life, the next step on your journey towards whatever your dream goal is. So you will get
Yeah.
there. But that's, I think, where feng shui gets a little bit confusing, where they think if I put this plant or these flowers, all my problems are solved. You will always get what you need, but you might not necessarily get the end goal that you desire immediately like that.
So we have
Okay.
to we have to do the work on ourselves first, or simultaneously is what
Exactly.
we're saying there. Okay, I got you.
And I think it's such a great call out. I'm still sitting in my unmastered class brain. So just help me out with this. Do I need to, in order to change that energy, right? Do I need to, is there a specific thing where like your bed positioned in this particular way with this amount of sunlight on the right side because it's facing northwest does that? Or is it just as simple as like, you know what, you've had your bed in that corner of the room for so long that simply just moving it to somewhere else in the room is going to naturally shift the energy?
So actually it can be both. It can absolutely be both. So, I mean, since we're bringing up the bed situation, one of the things, the tangible things in feng shui we often say that I have found to be incredibly accurate and powerful is to not have your bed in alignment with a door. You are getting a lot of energy through a door. Doors actually in feng shui are incredibly powerful. It's how the energy shifts and changes. And so we don't want your bed in alignment with a door because you're trying to sleep. You're trying to get a restful night's sleep.
What does that mean in alignment? Meaning like
Yeah.
facing the door?
Like you shouldn't walk into it, right?
Yeah. So like when
the-
you open up the door to your bedroom, your bed should not be like, you should not be able to draw a direct
there.
line to your bed. It should be like diagonal or off to the side.
Dude,
Yeah.
no wonder my life is such a mess right now. I literally, you open my door and you're staring directly at the bed. Like I'm laying in bed and I'm looking out the door and down
There's
the hallway.
ways to fix it, by the way, if you can't move the bed. I don't want anybody
God.
sitting here like sitting in fear, with fear going down their spine if they can't do that with their space.
You know me so well. I'm like, I can't deal with this. My life is ruined.
But Lance, to your point, just moving things around in your home actually shifts an amazing amount of energy. So there's this old feng shui adage of change your life by moving 27 things. Yeah, both of your favorite. Both of your.
I love it. I love it though. I love that.
That
idea.
actually,
27, huh?
it has its roots in something very real. Our home can stay very static. Our furniture doesn't move, right?
So boring. Yes.
We don't
so
move things
boring. Tell me
around.
more.
So when I talk to somebody and they're like stuck in a functional freeze, or they can't get off the couch, they're just feeling really, really stuck. I'm like, okay, get up, open up your windows, blast some music, go move some things around in the entire house. It can be books, tchotchkes, move your couch six inches to the right.
Yeah.
All of it actually really does start to create energy flow again, and you will start to feel better.
This is like blowing. So I love that. I'm gonna do 27 things. Here's the question. So I work from home, as many people probably listening do, and my clients joke with me every time they get on Zoom with me. I'm in a different location in the house. I do that
I
because
am too.
it affects my
I
energy.
get that.
Is that those two things are connected then, Stacy? Right? Like
Totally.
I'm changing myself in the
Yeah,
space.
I totally get why. I do the
Ooh,
same thing. I have an office, but
yeah.
I'm sitting here at my, my kitchen table right now. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. So, and
Feels
some
good.
days the energy is going to feel a little different. Some days you're like, oh, I don't want to sit in my office today. I'm really tired. Because then there's something
Right.
in the office that's kind of draining your energy. So your body is trying to shift and change and to keep your energy high. And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go sit over there today.
This is bringing me back to you remember my favorite day in elementary school is when you got to pick a new desk, like a new pod. You got to move all your stuff, your little pencil box, and it was like it just changed everything. And now it's all making sense.
And I got so tired of sitting in the corner facing the wall for 3/4 of the year.
That's a
That
different
was the
problem.
most exciting
That's a
day of
different
the.
problem.
Oh,
That's
was?
different.
Oh, my bad.
But
Sorry.
Stacey, you've been so generous with your time. But before we start wrapping up, can you just share a little bit about how people that are interested in learning more, working with you, can do that, and where we can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and soon YouTube, all under Sanctuary with
Ooh.
Stacy. My website, stacyscott.co. Don't do stacyscott.com because you'll be taken to a real estate agent in Minnesota. stacyscott.co. Fun
Love
times.
it. Very.
Shout out to that
She
agent
might be-
in Minnesota.
Hope you're doing
but-
well.
Yeah.
But, working one-on-one with me is not for everybody. So, of course, I actually have spots open right now. For 4 months, we do a full-blown decluttering journey, home, body, life, and soul. You won't even recognize yourself. But for people who just want to dabble in this, I also do workshops. These are pre-recorded, access them anywhere, lifetime access. That way I know that this work is in layers. You get to pop in, pop out. So that's how people start to dabble in this and try it out. Because I know when you first start hearing about it, it's a little funky. But until I say something and I give people those mind blown moments, and that's when they want to keep moving forward. So all of that you can find on any of my links, those workshops.
Stacy, this has been so amazing chatting with you today. And it really, I learned a ton. I'm super excited to actually kind of dig in and learn a little bit more because I want to figure out some of those ways that I can improve some of the different areas of my life. But you just made it sound so easy. Like it's not, I always thought it was complicated.
Yeah.
And you just made it sound really simple and really easy. So super informative, really appreciate it. And we'll make sure that we put all the things that you talked about in the chat links for the show notes, and everyone get up the information and get up to date on how to reach you. But really, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and a huge shout out to everyone listening in the Unmastered Class community. We really appreciate you guys and the support. It's been awesome. If you like today's episode, do us a solid just by leaving us a review, hitting the subscribe button. And until next time, keep exploring, keep transforming, and keep mastering the unmastered side of your life. We'll talk to you soon.